Churches are in decline, especially here in Vermont. But do we have anybody to blame but ourselves? So people like to share a lot of surveys here in Vermont about how we are the least churched state in the Union. And what that generally means is that we have the least amount of people sitting in our pews here in church any given Sunday. And while this is a symptom that churches nationwide are experiencing, here in Vermont it has church people, particularly freaked out. But just because we have less people sitting in church pews here in this state, it doesn't mean that we have a declining population of people who have faith. And I know a lot of people like to look at Vermont and be like, liberal people don't like religion, but I don't think that's what's going on here at all. I think what's happening is here in Vermont, we have a population that asks themselves the question, what do I get if I go to church? What is going to church going to do to make my life better? And that's honestly a question that people should be asking. I think that there are a lot of different things that are making it so people aren't showing up to the pews here in Vermont. But I think that the fundamental question congregations and churches here in Vermont need to be asking is, are we communicating effectively with the communities that we serve? Because I've served a lot of these congregations. We don't communicate effectively with our communities. A lot of congregations here in Vermont, and particularly small town congregations here in Vermont, are traditional churches. We worship in a traditional way, and we reach out to communities that we have traditionally served. We may be progressive socially, but the way in which we see ourselves revolves around communicating the message of God in a traditional form that we've been doing for centuries. And so when people show up for worship, what they get is a very traditional looking service. Hymns that they've probably never sung before. Prayers that they probably don't really understand what they're about. And when the minister gets up and preaches the gospel, they're reading an essay that sounds like an academic paper and is less having a conversation with the people who have shown up and are sitting in the pews. You see, there's very little communication. It's more repeating the same traditions that we've done every Sunday over and over and over again. And I think we're living in a time where people need more than just tradition to participate in religion. They need to understand what that religion is about. They need to understand how it communicates a message of being a good person in the world today. As I said, I think that there are a lot of contributing factors to why we're seeing a declining attendance rate in churches here in Vermont. But I think that the first place congregations need to look in changing that trend is to really consider whether or not they're communicating the love of their faith effectively. Because love evolves. And if we're going to be preaching that love in a language that's 2,000 years old, we can't expect people nowadays to understand what we're saying.